Evening, everyone. Gandang umaga po. We're still waiting for some people. We'll start in 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you. Morning, everyone. Let's settle down. Gandang umaga po. Right, in behalf of the Senate, this Biofuels Oversight Committee is now called to order.
In behalf of the House of Representatives, this joint committee is hereby called to order.
And let me direct the committee secretary to recognize our guest and resource persons for this morning.
Good morning. I would like to acknowledge our guests and resource persons for today's Biofuels hearing. From the Department of Energy, ASEC Leonido Pulido III, Director Rino Abad, and USEC Donato Marcos. From the Department of Health, Engineer Luis Cruz. From the Sugar Regulatory Administration, Ms. Rosemary Gumera. From the Philippine Coconut Authority, Mr. Romulo de la Rosa and Ms. Maria Celia Racuepo. From the Department of Transportation, Mr. Benedicto Guia Jr. From the Board of Investments, Ms. Arian Ada Antony. From the Philippine Biodiesel Association, Mr. Dean Anglao. From the Independent Philippine Petroleum Companies Association, Attorney Bong Suntay and Ms. Tanya Samiliano. From the Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines, Mr. Paul Agustin and Mr. Romel Cabanela. From the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Ms. Cristel Gatdula. Ms. Lisa Stephanie Dizon and Ms. Bernadette Magadja. From the Mariano Marcos State University, Dr. Marlo Aquino and Engineer Thomas Obina. From the Asian Institute of Petroleum Studies Incorporated, Mr. Rafi Diaz. From the Philippine Institute of Petroleum, Mr. Teddy Reyes and Mr. Ding Villamayor. Everyone has been acknowledged, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ComSec. Today we have three topics. Number one, the changing of the blend for biodiesel. And number two, changing the blend, or possibility that changing the blend of ethanol. And number three, the quite controversial circular of the Department of Energy in the use of Euro 2. Upon consulting with my co-chair, Congressman Lord Velasco, we agreed that we will discuss the issue of the use of the Euro 2 fuel. And we included this issue in this hearing because it goes against the very core objective of the use of biofuels, especially ethanol and biodiesel. If you remember, one of the directions for the use of ethanol and biodiesel is to clean up the environment. And the reason for the advocacy of cleaning up the environment is to have healthy constituency. But we all know that Euro 2 has adverse health effects, and in that light, it is going against the core principles of the use of biofuels. That's why there's now some form of contradiction, because on one hand, the biofuel law is, the intention of the biofuel law is to make the environment cleaner, and hopefully it will redound to healthy constituents. And now you have a circular that is going against the core principles or the core directions of the biofuel law. So that's why we want to be enlightened with this circular. And we also want to understand the rationale of this circular on the use of the Euro 2 fuel. And at the end of the day, we also want to understand how will it benefit our constituents in terms of easing up inflation, and at the same time, the general benefit, which is cleaning up the environment and also having healthy constituents. So the co-chair agreed that we will discuss this ahead of the other topics. And before we go into the detail, let me ask our co-chair to give a few words.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson Sherwin T. Gatchalian. Distinguished members of the Senate, my esteemed colleagues from the House of Representatives, valued guests and resource persons, and all present at this hearing of the Biofuels Oversight Committee, a pleasant morning to all of you. During our previous meetings, the Biofuels Oversight Committee had a productive discussion on the percentage of biofuel blends required by law, the capacity or lack thereof of our local sugar and coconut industry to meet the demand for bioethanol, as well as the importation of bioethanol. We talked about the types of feedstock and how we can supply enough raw materials, including alternative feedstock that can be converted to biofuels. In passing, several studies on the impact of biofuels law on the lives of farmers as well as on the economy was also discussed. Also mentioned was the possibility of re-evaluating the formula used by the Sugar Regulatory Administration on the pricing formula of bioethanol, which may have contributed to the present high price of said biofuel. RA number 9367, otherwise known as the Biofuels Law, was enacted more than 10 years ago on January 12, 2007. Its IRR was enacted on May 17 of the same year. The objectives of the said law were as follows: to reduce dependence on imported oil, to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in compliance with our treaty obligations, to increase rural employment and income, and to secure the availability of alternative sources of fuel without triggering detrimental issues elsewhere. At present, the required biodiesel blend stands at 2%, while bioethanol blend is at 10%. More than 10 years after said law was enacted, we are starting to realize the challenges of uniting these objectives under one working policy. On the other hand, the Philippines has phased out Euro 2 fuels more than 2 years ago and mandated the use of Euro 4 fuels because of Euro 2 fuels' negative effects on the environment, people's health, and the economy. And yet, a couple of weeks ago, on August 10, 2018, the DOE issued Department Order number 2018-80012, which directed the Philippine downstream oil industry to offer Euro 2 compliant diesel as a fuel option for the transport and industry sector. The avowed goal of the said department order is to help implement measures to address current rising inflation that burdens the Filipino public. Indeed, it is our goal to lighten the burden of the Filipino public, but our foremost concern should be how to effectively and sustainably help lighten this burden. This morning, we hope to have a productive discussion so that we can see if the department order is truly an effective and sustainable measure that would help stem the burden of rising inflation among the Filipino consuming and commuting public, or if there are ways in which the implementation of the Biofuels Law, for instance, could provide a more lasting, effective, and sustainable relief for our countrymen than said department order. In this regard, we'd like to hear today how the reversion to Euro 2 fuels, which is 10 times more polluting than the current Euro 4, could help materially alleviate the effects of inflation among the consuming public. We'd like to hear if this directive is in compliance with the country's commitment to the Paris Agreements on climate change, the mentioned state policy in the Biofuels Law, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions, the Philippine National Standard on Fuels, the government's Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program, which requires Euro 4 compliant engines for modern jeepneys, the worldwide trend of going for cleaner fuels, thus limiting the current supply of dirtier fuels, and whether this reversion to Euro 2 fuels would offset other concerns of the downstream oil industry, such as logistical concerns, product adulteration, and smuggling concerns. As follow-up on earlier discussions, we would also like to take more than a cursory look on how the implementation of the Biofuels Act has actually benefited the farmers and the economy. We'd like to hear from those who have conducted the mentioned studies and their findings on the same. Finally, we'd like to hear whether the implementation of the Biofuels Act has adhered to the avowed purposes of said act. And if there are policy gaps, then how can we address those gaps so that we do not ultimately burden the Filipino consumers and commuters? We would like to hear if the Sugar Regulatory Agency has made a thorough study on its pricing formula, as discussed in previous meetings. We'd like to hear if the present implementation of the law still redounds to the benefit of the general public, or to only a few. If truly we contribute to the burden of the consumers, or if we lighten their collective load. Indeed, there is so much to discuss, to hear, and resolve. Today, I look forward to the input of our resource persons and guests to see how far we've come in attaining the objective of the Biofuels Law. Or in the alternative, how far we have yet to go, and how do we go about achieving these objectives. Hopefully, after today's session, we can come up with the necessary recommendations and legislative measures, if necessary, with respect to the Biofuels Law, as well as related laws and issuances. Fellow members of the Biofuels Oversight Committee, distinguished guests, once again, a pleasant morning to all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to iterate some good points that our co-chair mentioned earlier. I think the co-chair mentioned very specifically one of the core objectives of the Biofuels Act is to reduce greenhouse gases. At rini-reduce ho natin yung greenhouse gases para magkaroon tayo ng healthy constituency. No? I mean, that is one of the benefits of a cleaner, greener environment. But sa kabilang banda, no, the Department of Energy allowed the importation of Euro 2. And as the co-chair mentioned earlier, Euro 2 is 10 times more dirtier than the Euro 4. So you have a law that is promoting a cleaner environment, healthy constituent, but you have an implementing agency promoting a dirtier fuel. So parang hindi nagtutugma po yung objective eh. And we have to also be reminded that the Biofuel Act or the Biofuels Act is not cheap. No? Ethanol is expensive. No? CME or biodiesel is expensive. A price we pay to have a cleaner environment. So we're paying something to clean our environment, or we're paying something very expensive to clean up our environment, but at the same time, the implementing agency is bringing in 10 times more dirtier fuel. So we are we're confused and at a quagmire kung ano ba talaga ang objective po ng Department of Energy. And we also invited other stakeholders here that will shed light on this matter. We invited the Department of Health, who vehemently objected to this directive, and we also invited the Department of Transportation to also shed light, no, because they also had an adverse reaction to this policy direction. So with that, we're turning over the mic to the Department of Energy, and let's focus first on the policy on importing or allowing the importation of Euro 2.
Good morning, Honorable Chair of our Oversight Committee on Biofuels, and at the same time Senate Committee Chair on Energy, Honorable Sherwin Gatchalian. Also, Honorable Lord Alan J. Velasco, who is our co-chair in Biofuels Oversight Committee and also the Committee Chair on Energy in Congress. Distinguished guests, good morning po. First, sir, I'm here with my ASEC, Leonido Pulido, who is also in charge in the Oil Industry Management Bureau, and the vice chairs in the National Biofuels Board, and also the head of our technical committee in the National Biofuels Board, and also concurrently the directors of OIMB, which is Director Rino Abad. So first, sir, we humbly request for the presentation of a PowerPoint presentation for the Euro 2, and if allowed, also to continue with the biofuels.
Yes. Yusek, we have a projector. We have a new projector, in fact. We can use, sino ba yung operator? Who's the operator? Yan. Saan ba? Yan.
Sir, at least we can
Nabigay niyo na ba
narratively
yung-
present it if you...
Yes,
you
of
know,
course.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a PowerPoint so everyone can see?
Only the cost difference, sir, because that was the one listed.
Yeah, but if may ano kayo, Director, at least makita ho ng lahat yung numbers. It's hard to talk about numbers without the visual
Mr.
visual
Chair,
aids.
I gave the USB to the. Have you given it to the? Yes. Okay. Po.
Ayan, sige.
Okay.
Sige. Medyo mahirapan ka lang,
Saan si Aida?
Director, because nakatalikod.
Mr. Chair, we just request that our staff will operate the.
Sige po. Sige, you can proceed.
Mr. Chair, can we start now the presentation? Okay. Yes, okay. Diretso ka, Aida, sa ano? Sa slide ng Euro 2. Again, good morning, Mr. Chair. Indeed, there was an instruction made by the Department of Energy to the oil companies to offer as a fuel option Euro 2 diesel. It was limited to the diesel and it did not touch on the gasoline fuel. Going to the Philippine national standards on Euro 2 diesel, I think the only difference among the parameters would be on the sulfur. And then, again, we confirm the difference is from 50 ppm in Euro 4 to 500 ppm in Euro 2. Other properties of the diesel remains the same between Euro 2 and Euro 4. Now, going in relation to the emission standards, because the PNS would deal with the fuel standards, but we have to correlate this with the emission standards of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. The Euro 4 emission standards was issued by the DENR through DAO 2015-04, and it says that such standard of using Euro 4 diesel would only start by January 2016. But there's a mention of a specific item there that requires that the requirement of all new vehicles. The reason being is that the older version was not actually required to be on the Euro 4. In other words, the registration of all new vehicles starting January 2016, it was even delayed by 2018. But that requirement only refers to the registration, and thereby the implication is the use of the new vehicles starting January 2016. So the older versions are actually compatible with Euro 2. And unfortunately, 100% in fact of all PUJs are not yet Euro 4 compliant. We just have to mention that those facts. Again, on the side of the emission standards, the DENR provided for the 4 parameter limits. It speaks of carbon monoxide from 0.5 to 1 we have hydrocarbon, we have NOx, nitrogen oxide, and particulate matter. It did not mention about sulfur. And anywhere in the world, emission standards does not mention about sulfur. Admittedly, the requirements of sulfur is actually required in the Philippine Clean Air Act. But there is, of course, a question on how a dispersion model would show in the case of a particular area like Metro Manila. I think the Department of Health could actually discuss this better. Once those 500 ppm sulfur gets out or being emitted by the vehicles, how is it being dispersed, and how does it affect the health of the people? In other words, the question there is the morbidity, difference between 50 ppm sulfur and 500. Now, we have to mention that because carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and NOx can only be filtered, or can only be converted with the presence of one equipment, which is the catalytic converter. Without that, it doesn't make sense using Euro 10 if you are using a vehicle which is old, without catalytic converter. So we have to mention that because 100% of the PUJs and these PUVs, and these PUVs are consuming around 50% of the diesel demand in the Philippines. 50% does not have or do not have catalytic converter. Now, in terms of particulate matter, you also need additional equipment for that, which is the particulate matter filter, which also the PUVs don't have. So, in other words, what the Department of Energy thought of at that time is a perspective on how we can provide an equivalent fuel to what is existing vehicle out there, which is in truth almost 100% of the PUVs does not or do not have that capability to filter in the first place those that we want to avoid, those pollutants that we want to avoid. So, in other words, the fuel option, the mention of fuel option is just giving the option for our consumers to be able to choose at a lesser, at a cheaper priced diesel, if in fact their vehicles cannot even also filter a higher grade diesel, which also emits the same kind. As I mentioned, it's only the sulfur which so the different, which have different parameter level or limits. So carbon monoxide, you cannot filter that. Hydrocarbon, nitrogen oxide, particulate matter, cannot filter that. And these are what are present in the emission standards. Of course, sulfur in the Philippine Clean Air Act was included, but not in the emission standards. In the Philippine Clean Air Act, there is a mention about sulfur, but anywhere in the world, we don't have emission standards which includes sulfur. But in the Philippine Clean Air Act, including US also, has sulfur. But again, there's a question about the dispersion model. How does it, how is sulfur 500 dispersed different from 50 ppm? And the morbidity effect, meaning the health effect to the people. So, aligning with that emission standards of the DNR, we restricted ourselves to those 4 pollutants versus the fact that 100% of the PUVs do not have the capability to filter in the first place these 4 pollutants. So that summarizes where the last consideration really is the mention that it's around 0.25 or 20 centavo to 30 centavo is the price difference of Euro 2 and Euro 4 based on mean of Platts Singapore as of July 2018. Mr. Chair, that more or less summarizes the issue on the decision to offer Euro 2 fuel diesel.
And may I humbly add on that, Mr. Chair? The Department Order number 002-18-08-0012 actually is an output of 2 collegial meetings from different stakeholders, wherein we arrive at these directives, which will only serve as temporary. Second, it will save costs and cushion the impact of oil price hike. Third, it's just a fuel option. That's why on the second paragraph of the directives, accordingly, oil companies offering Euro 2 compliant diesel shall submit a monthly compliance report indicating, among others, the list of participating retail outlets for proper monitoring by this department. And fourth, we also asked the Department of Natural Resources, through its director who is present in the meeting, who is Director Mitudio Torbella, and he shows a graph that says that there is no significant difference between the consumption of Euro 2 and Euro 4, considering that the 2015 models down is compatible with Euro 2. And one good thing, after this department order was issued, immediately we called for a stakeholders meeting, both the biofuels and producers and the oil companies, to discuss this, and we clarify on them that this is just a fuel option. Therefore, it's a practical and a management decision on their part. Say in BGC, which is a place for SUVs and so many model vehicles, you will not of course sell that their Euro 2. And in some places where main thoroughfares and PUJs are of higher presence, definitely their station might sell their Euro 2 because their vehicles is compatible on Euro 2. And of course, this is actually to impact and to cushion the impact of the oil price hike. Plus, considering this is temporary, this is an option, and of course, there is a collaborative statement of DNR that it does not really have that very big or significant comparison or effect on the environment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Yusek. So I'll just laymanize yung sinabi ni Director. No? Basically, right now, Euro 4, ang sulfur niya is about 50 parts per million, correct? Ang Euro 2 is now 500 parts per million. So in effect, mas maraming sulfur ang Euro 2, correct? In effect, we'll be inhaling more sulfur in our body and the bodies of our children, correct? So ang tanong ngayon, will that increase in inhalation of sulfur bad for your health? Let's ask the Department of Health that question because I think they're the most qualified agency to answer that question. Engineer Cruz?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I just like to read the response of Secretary Duque during the Ted Pylon show. We understand that the DOE decision to issue Department Order 2018-08-0012 dated August 10, 2018, directing the Philippine downstream oil industry to other Euro 2 compliant diesel as a fuel option for the transport and energy sector. We understand that it is an inflation control measure for the purpose of reducing the impact of rising petroleum prices in the world market. It might be beneficial to many, particularly to the poor population. However, the Department of Health may think otherwise considering the possible negative impact it may bring to the environment and health. The health of the population might be compromised from respiratory illnesses rising to exposure to contaminated air due to gas emission with carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and oxides of nitrogen. So as to the effects of these chemicals, it is better to better clean air, and the people will have less exposure to health risks from contaminated air. This means the possible reduction or even prevention of respiratory illnesses. Even those people with heart or lung issues will be benefiting, since if they breathe a lot of polluted air, their condition might become even more serious. So to continue, the Department of Health, for the protection of public health, we recommend to continue the earlier plan and policy of the government, and the benefits of the people might get from cheaper fuel could not justify or compensate the possible healthy life loss of a person due to exposure to polluted air. Thank you, sir.
So, Engineer, can you answer this directly, no? By inhaling 500 parts per million, no? Ano po yung mga, kanina sabi niyo, adverse effects?
For carbon dioxide, sir, it is, carbon monoxide, it causes headaches, respiratory problems, and high concentrations, or even death. For nitrogen oxides, can cause inflammation of the airways, reduce lung function, and trigger asthma. And for hydrocarbons, it can cause breathing problems and increase symptoms in those with asthma. For sulfur dioxide, sir, or sulfur, leading to, it's more on the environmental effects, leading to acid rain and formation of ozone and of particulate matter. So not so serious with sulfur, sir.
When you inhale, tama po ba understanding ko, when you inhale sulfur, especially increased amounts, which is 500 parts per million, pwede ka magkaroon ng respiratory illness.
Yes, sir, it will lead to
when you say respiratory illness, is pneumonia considered respiratory illness? Asthma, pneumonia, ano pa ho?
And other diseases, sir.
So in other words, the goal is to really reduce the sulfur content of fuels in order to reduce this type of illness.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
It can also lead, sir, to premature mortality from respiratory and cardiovascular diseases.
So in short po, sulfur can cause respiratory illness.
Yes, sir.
An increased amount of sulfur can cause increased risk in the likelihood of getting respiratory illness, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay po. Mr. Diaz, you're also raising your hands.
I just would like to comment. Actually, the statement of Director Abad is correct. It's very correct. The problem with the sulfur issue from 550 and 50 ppm for Euro 4, I think it started when the Euro 4 mandate took effect in January 2016, and Secretary Paje made a statement that with the 50 ppm sulfur, we will have clean air and the particulate matter will be resolved. There will be clean PM emissions. The problem is he did not specify that this is done via the emission control devices. So a lot of people thought that it comes from combustion. But no, it comes from the emission control devices that are installed in modern diesel engines, which require low sulfur fuel. Because these emission control devices function with the catalyst that is poisoned by sulfur. So therefore there is a need to reduce the level of sulfur from 500 ppm to 50. In fact, later on, they want to reduce it to 10, which is the Euro 5. That has to do with the emission control devices that are installed along the exhaust system of modern diesel engines. But older engines that do not have emission control devices will not benefit as much because it's okay lang if it's 50 ppm or 500 ppm. So I think it all started from there, that people started to think that it has to do with the combustion. No, it has to do with the emission control devices. But maybe I could explain a little bit further about sulfur if I could present a few slides with the PowerPoint, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Diaz, did you
Yeah, it's there already.
did you give your PowerPoint? Sige po.
Mr. Chair, in relation to the clarification with DOH while we are waiting for the presentation, sir, let's talk about the specifics. Under the Philippine Clean Air Act, the fare moderate there is it's 350 ppm to 1,440 ppm. That's in the Philippine Clean Air Act, fare moderate. That's way high, in fact. In a 24-hour average, that's still average. So in fact, there's a question really on the dispersion of the emissions. So wala pong klarong study pa sa amin dyan at ewan ko kung meron si DOH. Really, the good is on the 340. It's just a difference of 500 minus 340 ppm. Yun ang pinaka-highest dito sa Philippine Clean Air Act, which is 340 ppm. So, yung difference ba yan na 340, it's 160, sir? Would that, ano po ang morbidity effect? Yun po yung tanong natin eh. At in the end, tama po yung sinabi ni sir na really the force to lower it to 50 ppm, sad to say, is not really on the focus by the European countries and the US, was really on the focused on the catalytic converters kasi para hindi po siya masira. Or in other words, kasi isa po sa pinakamalaking, pinaka-potent na anti-catalyst yung bumabara doon sa mga working surface ng catalytic converter ay sulfur. So pinababa po yan. Pero itong 340 versus 500 as the highest in the Philippine Clean Air Act is a question in terms of the actual living condition kung sakali ilabas ngayon. In fact, kaya nga wala siya dun sa emission standards eh, yung sulfur. Second, sir, we also failed to mention that among the countries in the Asia-Pacific region, kailangan lang po namin ito i-mention. Si Indonesia po na 5 times ang economy po sa atin is still offering Euro 1 and Euro 2. Thailand, Singapore, mayaman eh. We have Malaysia, which is 4 times, I think, the economy natin is offering not even 1, but Euro 2, Euro 4, and Euro 5. Myanmar po, may Euro 2 pa rin sila. Cambodia is Euro 1 and Euro 2. Laos is Euro 1 and Euro 2. So, mga katatabi po natin ay way below sa atin. So, yun po ang dagdag sa nasabi namin, nakalimutan lang po kanina.
Mr. Diaz, go ahead. And let's keep our presentation to
it's not
the main
It's
topic.
very short. It's just because I'm not going to. I will not talk about these are issues. The first one. Can you go back? The first chart. Yes. These were the issues that I had read in newspaper a couple of weeks back. That's why I made this statement. The first one was a statement that B2 can already be eliminated to reduce the cost of diesel pump because there is Euro 4 and the forthcoming Euro 5 will take care of the environment. That was a statement. So my comment there is that this statement is attributed to misunderstanding of the action and purpose of low sulfur in Euro 4. So I will stick to this. I will not go into the second part anymore because I saw that the Department of Energy had already corrected this flow in pricing computation. So next. So here the question of availability of Euro 5 and Euro 4 and 5 will take care of environment, which eliminates B2. But this will discuss the Euro 2 and Euro 4. Next. If we have to understand Eurofuels, Eurofuels are various EU directives of the European Commission on the emission limits of gasoline and diesel that must be followed by EU member countries. The emission limits from Euro 1 to Euro 6 are specific to reduction of carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, NOx, and particulate matter. Sulfur emission has never been a concern in Eurofuels. And the Euro emission limits are there, the numbers are there, Euro 1, Euro 2, Euro 3, Euro 4, Euro 5, Euro 6. You can see that it is basically a reduction every year. The Philippines did not go through Euro 3. We were Euro 2 up to January 2016. Now, when we talk of sulfur emission in this particular Euro diesel, the sulfur emission, which is basically the carbon soot, becomes part of the particulate matter as a soot. Next. So sulfur is an impurity in crude oil. It is not part of the carbon chain structure of diesel fuel. This is why there is what you call sour crude, which has high content of sulfur, and the sweet crude, which is low content of sulfur. And sweet crude has a premium value since it need not go through a desulfuration. Now the pictures here is an explanation. See, Euro 2 and Euro 4 differs only in sulfur content, which is 500 ppm for Euro 2 and 50 ppm for Euro 4. Now as an explanation, if you look at a car on the right picture, part of that is dirty. Let's just say the car is the diesel molecule, diesel fuel, and the left that is dirty, that's covered by dirt. Let's call the dirt the sulfur. Then it goes through a car wash. Let's call the car wash the sulfurizer process in a refinery. So what the car wash will do is to clean the dirt. The sulfurizer will remove the sulfur. So what comes out will be a clean car or a clean diesel, which is the 50 ppm sulfur. So it has removed those impurities, but it's the same car. It did not improve the engine emissions. It still emitted. If it emitted dirty in Euro 2, it will still emit dirty in Euro 4. Without the use of the diesel particulate matter.
You're saying, Mr. Diaz, is ang tinanggal lang yung sulfur content?
Sulfur, yes.
Which is
500 ppm. Nilinisan mo, ginawa mo 50 ppm.
yun ang with
Yun lang.
that device,
Oo.
with that cleaning device.
Yes. The carbon chain remains the same. Next please. There is the carbon chain from C8 to C2022, that is the Euro 2 or Euro 4 diesel. You remove the sulfur, it's still the same. You still have the high molecular weight carbon that will emit emission. So the sulfur, whether it's 500 ppm or 50 ppm, when you see that dotted line, that represents 232 degrees C. That is the overall emission temperature of sulfur. When you reach that temperature, whether you have 500 ppm or 50 ppm, it will burn the sulfur. You will not have carbon soot because it has complete burning. The sulfur will be burned completely. Next. So here, when you have CME, which is an oxygenated fuel, you mix it with Euro 2 or Euro 3 or Euro 4, it provides oxygen in the cluster of carbon, which will help the combustion, makes it cleaner. So whether it's Euro 2 or Euro 3 or Euro 4, without the combustion improvement, it will be dirty, which is what we had in 2005 and so on without the biodiesel, we have this emission problem in the streets. So many smoke belching, diba? Lesser mileage. Next. Here, when the government implemented the 1% blend of biodiesel on Euro 2, you can see that the picture below, that is the cotton ball dipped in a Euro 2, pure Euro 2 fuel, and you burn that cotton ball. The carbon deposition will indicate just about how much emission that you're having. The picture on the right is the Euro 2 with a blend of 1 or 2% biodiesel. And that is what you will have. So you have lesser carbon deposition, carbon emission. And this translated to mileage improvement. This is a report of DTI on this Memorandum Circular 55, that the mileage had improved by 14% to 21, and the emission had dropped from 7.5 opacity to 1.6 opacity, which is a 78.1% improvement. So here, the improvement is basically because CME or biodiesel is oxygenated there, and then it has a strong solvency that when it is blended with diesel, it sort of dissolves the high molecular weight carbon and makes it burn better.
Mr. Diaz, one question. This was all done before the introduction of the converter, no?
Yeah, walang converter ito.
Without.
Converter. So the converter, it functions because like the, can you make, there's a slide after this. Well, there. These are the emission control devices that are installed in the exhaust emission of the diesel engine. There are three components. One, you have the DOC, which means diesel oxygenation catalyst, and DPF, which is diesel particulate filter, which takes care of the particulate matter, and the SCR, which takes care of NOx. So you can see this is a high-tech engine, 2016 and above. Jeepneys do not have this. So this catalyst is poisoned by sulfur. That's why they need a low sulfur, so that this will function very well. It is not because of the combustion, but it is because of the diesel. The catalyst is really basically on gasoline engines. Your converter, a catalytic converter, is gasoline. This one, a diesel particulate filter, is for diesel. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Mr. Diaz. So, Euro 2, the reason why we moved up to Euro 4 is para bumaba yung sulfur content, bumaba sa 50 ppm para magamit natin dito sa catalyst.
Correct.
Tama, no?
Correct.
So that we can, we will have cleaner emissions.
Yes, because the emission will be addressed by these emission control devices.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've been hearing kanina, like what DOH stated, he was actually stating yung mga carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, hydrocarbons, which is separate from sulfur.
Yeah, that's different. That's
so you're saying, are you telling us that even with the difference in the ppm of sulfur, it doesn't really have an effect in the health of...
without the emission control devices, you still have those emissions.
Yeah, but if we use the Euro 4 on Euro 2 engines, there's really no effect.
Euro 4 fuel on Euro 2 engines.
Euro 2
Actually,
engines.
Euro 2 engines will be engines without diesel particulate filter. There's no effect.
There's no effect.
Yeah.
But with that's what I want to find out, because there's actually certain issues that I want to find out in using the Euro 2. One, because as we can see, kitang-kita natin, yung sa Euro 4, ang difference na naman yung sulfur content. Gusto ko malaman yung 450 ppm ba talaga, is there a direct impact on the health of the people? Because ang
Yes.
pinupush nga natin sa Clean Air Act, para healthy ang mga kababayan natin. So yung 450 ba ng difference ng Euro 4 at Euro 2, is there really a big effect on the health of and sabi kanina ni Director Abad, based on the Clean Air Act, 340 yung maximum natin. There's a difference of only 160. Would there really be an effect, Mr. Diaz, because considering everything, kunyari, let's say, the Euro 2 engines, gumagamit ng Euro 4
Fuel.
Euro 4 fuel, tapos ngayon ini-introduce ng DOE ang Euro 2. So sinasabi na it's cheaper by 30%. Tapos ang only 30 centavos ang makikita lang naman natin doon pag ginamit natin yung Euro 2 is yung 450 na difference na ppm na sulfur. Yung 450 difference, does that spell a big effect on the health of the people?
Yeah,
Yun ang what I want
explain
to
ko
know.
po kanina that a Euro 2 diesel fuel and a Euro 4 diesel fuel. Euro 4 diesel fuel without the emission control devices will be as dirty as Euro 2 diesel without CME. So both of them require an oxygenation feature additive so that they will burn very well. As I said, when you reach the temperature of 232 degrees C, all of the sulfur, whether you have 500 ppm or 50 ppm, will burn totally. But I'm not saying we need really Euro 2. Tama yung sinabi ng DOE that to have an alternative Euro 2. Because if you impose a Euro 2, that will be a logistic nightmare for the oil companies. They will have to have two, because there will be now Model 2016 engines that will require Euro 4. So they will have to have two types of diesel. One is for jeepneys and all these older engines, and then you have Euro 2 for Euro 4 for the newer engines. So you will have two. Since the price difference is really not that big, maybe optional will be a good option. But if the price is very big, then maybe that makes sense.
Okay, so I guess, Mr. Chair, looking at it health-wise, they're saying na it's okay lang.
Mr. Diaz,
That's how I see it. That's what they're saying eh. Kasi Mr. Chair, if you look at it, parang DOE is saying na total, ang Clean Air Act naman natin is 360 ppm ang allowed. Tapos, compared to 500 ppm, may difference na 140 ppm. More or less, payagan na rin natin kasi makakatipid naman tayo ng 30 cents. Ganun ba?
Mr. Chair, but only to the extent that we are able to justify that through fuel matching. Kasi nga sinasabi namin, kung 50% ng diesel sa bansa ay ginagamit ng PUVs na wala namang mga emission control device, hanggang hindi sila, more or less kung ma-phase out sila, wala na talagang justification yan. And that's the reason na moving forward po, yung ating move towards increasing the level of grade ng diesel. Because I know for a fact na darating din ang time na wala nang matitirang sasakyan na walang emission control device. When that time comes, siguro yung move po ng Department of Transport na i-impose na yan modernization, mag-a-adjust po tayo. Sabi pa nga ni Yusek, this is only a temporary move, directive towards more or less balancing the immediate, the urgent need to at least lower the rising price of oil.
Mr. Chair, just a quick clarification lang, no? So, Mr. Diaz, what you're saying, pag ang sasakyan ko ay Euro 4, kinargahan ko ng Euro 4, ang output malinis. Correct?
Yes.
Pag ang sasakyan ko Euro 2, kinargahan ko Euro 2, ang output ko madumi. Correct?
Kinagawa ng Euro 2 rin.
Yes.
Without biodiesel, madumi.
Without biodiesel, no?
Without biodiesel, madumi.
Madumi, okay. Pag kung may Euro 4 ang sasakyan ko, kinargahan ko ng Euro 2,
Madumi rin yan kasi
anong lalabas?
the emission control devices will not function. It will
Euro
be
4 sasakyan ko,
Oo.
kinargahan ko Euro 2. Ang output is
Dirty yan. Kasi
Simple ako. Output, madumi, malinis. Madumi.
Marumi.
Correct. Alin po ang mas mura? Euro 2, Euro 4?
Well,
Euro 2.
Euro 2. mas-
So anong tendency ng may-ari ng Euro 4 na sasakyan?
Mr. Chair,
Anong tendency?
Gustuhin ko man.
Anong tendency nga? Simple lang. Anong tendency?
well, the tendency will be prevented by the fact na masisira ang sasakyan.
No, but that's not the point. The point is anong tendency?
Ay magpapakarga po sa Euro 2. The problem is,
So even yung malinis na Euro 4 engine will now generate dirtier fuel or dirtier emissions.
kaya lang
Correct?
masisira. Aware po kasi ang,
Hindi, but simple lang. Correct?
well, pipili po talaga ang tao ng mas mura.
O kaya nga.
I admit.
Kaya nga. No, that's
Pero, sir,
that's
ang-
the point. No?
Pero kung ang,
Instead of cleaning,
Yes, sir.
we're now making it dirtier. And let me just recognize the presence of our of Senator Pimentel. Senator, we're talking about the use of Euro 4 and Euro 2. So my point here is, instead of encouraging cleaner emissions, we're actually encouraging dirtier emissions. Even those people who are using Euro 4 engines will now tend to buy the cheaper, dirtier fuels. Tama po ba?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, kasi pag ginamit mo yun sa Euro 4, unang-unang masisira yung emission standard mo, and when you renew,
Correct,
Wala.
masisira nga emission standards nga natin eh.
Apo.
That's the point.
Pero pag nag-renew ka na po, dahil 2016 ka na, at wala nang emission device, at kayo ay dumaan dun sa emission testing center, magfi-fail po at hindi ka na po makaka-renew. So, natural, pag ako ang may sasakyan na 2016 na, hindi po ako gagamit ng Euro 2.
My second point. Nagpasok tayo ng mas murang fuel, no? Ano pong tendency ng bibili ng bagong sasakyan? Dapat compatible sa murang fuel.
Mr. Chair, meaning you have to have a fuel which is compatible to your vehicle.
Yeah, for example nga, I'm going to purchase a car tomorrow and I see that Euro 2 is cheaper. So anong tendency ngayon ng buyer ng sasakyan?
I will not resort to Euro 2 because
Bakit?
masisira po sir yung sasakyan.
Then I will buy a car that is Euro 2 compliant.
So, fuel option po ang sabi. Hindi po siya replacement. It's a fuel option.
But what is the tendency? Kung gusto ko nga makatipid, if I want to save every day.
Pero hindi po kayo makakabili ng ano.
Correct.
Isa pa yun.
Isa pa yun. That's another topic.
Yeah.
No? I'm just saying that's another topic.
Okay.
I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, we're now delivering this type of message to the industry. No? Na bumili ko yun na mura kahit na madumi. Yun ang message dito eh. That's my point. And I also ran some basic figures, no, based sinabi ho ng DOH. Dito po sa kanina ho, paki-flash nga yung savings ng yung sa DOE.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
interject lang ako sandali. With what you said, kaya sabi nga ni Chair kanina, parang if you already have Euro 4 vehicles, di ba? And nobody's selling Euro 2 vehicles anymore. Tapos, siya sabi ni Mr. Chair kanina, syempre if you gas up with Euro 2. Tapos sasabihin nyo naman, hindi, syempre papagas ka ng Euro 4, yung bagay sa vehicle mo. But at the end of the day, you can't discount na maraming ignorant sa what type of fuel to use on your vehicle. Sorry to say, but maraming hindi alam na kinakailangan na Euro 4 pala yung para sa kanilang vehicle. Or, kung nasabihan sila in passing nung car dealer na kailangan Euro 4 ikarga mo dyan. But after sabihin natin how many months, nakita nila yung Euro 2 do sa gas station, cheaper by 30 cents. kakaragahan ko ng Euro 2 yun. At the end of the day, karagahan mo ng Euro 2, sabihin nyo, babagsak sa emissions test because hindi nga kakayanin ng catalyst, mas gagastos pa po yung kababayan natin dahil masisira yung kotse nila. Diba? So, Mr. Chair, yun lang yung pinahin ko.
I did some quick tabletop numbers. No? If we're saving 16 centavos, no? Yan po ang savings, Director. No, 16 centavos.
Mr. Chair, hindi pa kasi kumpleto yung August, but we have the July, kumpleto po siya.
Assuming we'll take the 30 centavos savings. A 30 centavos savings will yield for an average consumer na nagmamaneho po about 400 pesos a month. Savings. Okay? Pero, sabi ni DOH, magkakaroon ako ng asthma. No? Ang inhaler, pinakamurang inhaler ng asthma is 800 pesos. No? So nakamura po ako ng 400 pesos, pero bibili naman ako ng gamot para sa asthma ko ng 800 pesos. No? So, to be honest, so I see the intention. No? The intention really is to join in the fight against inflation. No? That is really the intention here. No doubt, no? I really commend the DOE for helping the country in fighting inflation. Talagang mabigat po ang inflation. In fact, that is really the original premise of the circular. However, merong unintended consequences. No? And this is where consultation and meetings will come into play. And that's why in one of the statements of Secretary Duque na hindi na-consult ang DOE or DOH dito po sa policy statement na ito or sa policy strategy na ito. And iyan po talaga nangyayari if we don't consult the other departments. You'll have unintended consequences. Ito yung mga hindi natin nakita because we're so focused on bringing down the price. No doubt, the objective is very noble, but there are unintended consequences here. No? And that's why we're here to understand, no? And whether the savings of 16 to 30 pesos is worthwhile, considering that there are health effects or adverse health effects mentioned by DOH. This is only health, no? Meron pang economic effects also ito, which is from the oil players and the oil stakeholders who mentioned that they will now have 2 tanks to fully roll out this this order, no? So we'll talk about that later. But Mr. Diaz,
yung sinabi ko kanina, Mr. Chair, that if you have a Euro 4 engine and it will require Euro 4 fuel, that's fine. That will have clean emission. But Euro 4 fuel without CME, and eventually it goes to the jeepneys. The jeepneys will have plenty of emission without biodiesel. That's why if you go Euro 4, there must be biodiesel so that it can also be used by jeepneys, because jeepneys do not have emission control devices. So you need to oxygenate the diesel fuel so that it will combust completely. And that is the one that will burn the sulfur, and that is the one that will burn the high molecular weight carbon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. We'll go to the other facets of this circular, which is the economic side. No, rolling out this order has cost also, and looking at the savings, we want to understand whether the rollout cost equates to the savings, or we will still get savings despite a massive rollout cost from the oil companies. And we want to hear from Mr. Teddy Reyes of the Petroleum Institute of the Philippines.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Gatchalian and Congressman Velasco. We are with the Department of Energy in addressing the very high inflation the public is suffering now. But at the same time, we have to be realistic on the ground. The savings that Euro 2 vis-a-vis Euro 4 is, as shown in the charts, varies from a high of 30 centavos per liter at the time we were making the evaluation, and we met the Department of Energy vis-a-vis a lower differential of 16 centavos per liter. With this, if Euro 2 will be demanded, there will be higher demand for Euro 2, we might see a higher price per Euro 2 in the region, and this will further diminish the differential between Euro 4 and Euro 2. The problem is, when we reintroduce Euro 2, because remember it was in the market, when we will reintroduce Euro 2 in the market, the oil companies, all players for that matter, will definitely have to have incremental operating costs. These are maintaining two pumps, because you cannot mix the two. They are of two different grades. You have two dispensing pumps. You have to dispense one Euro 4 and the other one. And at the same time, there will be storage with the transport cost differential, higher transport cost, because you cannot mix again in a tank truck. So our estimate here is that it is going to be even more than 30 centavos per liter. That will wipe out the benefit of a lower Euro 2 quality. Yun ang problema po. Of course, we wrote the Department of Energy, and we were very grateful that our points were considered and understood by the Department of Energy, because aside from the cost differential, there are a lot of other factors which to us will not give a net benefit by reintroducing Euro 2. It will defeat the PUP modernization program of the government. Ang isa po problema dito, yung tinatawag natin confusion sa motorist. Baka magkaroon na hindi natin maiiwasan to, yung Euro 2 na palagay sa mali, yung Euro 4 na palagay sa mali. So, you can't, these are realities on the ground. Aside from that, this is going to be running opposite the objective of the government, which is the PUB modernization program. There are a lot of other factors that, and also, remember, the Philippines is aligning with the other countries in the stabilization of fuel standards in the region. So again, this might run counter to that objective. There are a lot of other reasons that we have written the Department of Energy and provided a copy to the Oversight Committee on Biofuels. I'm not an environmental expert, pero ang point ko po dito tungkol sa sulfur, ang sulfur kasi, ang main effect niyan, if you have more sulfur, yung particulate matter mo, na-acceleration mo to produce. So the higher sulfur content hastens the particulate matter formation. The lower, less hastens, no? Mas hindi kasinong kabilis kung ang sulfur content mo mataas. But it is the particulate matter that is lung irritant. Ito po yung lung irritant o yung particulate matter kasi this is in microns. This is measured in microns. So very microscopic. Hindi natin nakikita probably with our naked eye. Pero pumapasok po ito sa ating system, especially our respiratory system. So the higher sulfur hastens the formation of particulate matter. And it goes without saying, pag mas matapa yung sulfur content mo, malilesen yung particulate matter formation. And the particulate matter is the one that is more harmful to the respiratory system. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes, Yusek.
First of all, as I mentioned earlier, this directive was as an output of a collegial meeting, and we involved also some big stakeholders here, like Petron and other independent players. Actually, sir, this directive is just, as I mentioned, I will reiterate again, this is just temporary, and this is a fuel option addressing the marginalized sector. Kasi yung mga SUV, tsak namang hindi magkakarga ito nung Euro 2. Pangalawa po, ang biggest emitters talaga are the tricycles, which are the two-strokes engines. That's why DOE had also make a transformation of these to electric vehicles. Ano po? And of course, the good gentleman is representing the president, as the president of the VIP, is representing 4 major players, and we understand that it is a very big percentage in the market, which is Petron, Shell, Total, and Caltex. But immediately after we release these directives, we call a meeting for all the stakeholders, meaning even the independent players and the biofuels producers will all call to be consulted. And the infrastructure that he was saying, that the good gentleman is saying, is not mandatory. Actually, even the independent players acted that they can just import Euro 2 for their one infrastructure. And besides, this is temporary and optional. Therefore, you are not really obliged to do it. And secondly, because of this, they were triggered. These PIP members were triggered to offer discounts. By not just importing Euro 2, they offer bigger discounts. Meaning, because this industry is deregulated, we are not privy to all those components in the pricing. This one makes us a direct, give us a direct knowledge kung gaano talaga yung matitipid, which is 30. And this is not economically viable to compare it, or in terms of economic viability, it should not be compared with regards to infrastructure investment that will be done by the oil companies, because this is optional. This is just temporary, while addressing and cushioning the impact of the oil price hike. So, lilinawin pa lang po namin. After the directives, pwede pong tumutol dito kung nagsisinungaling ako. After the directives, we call the attention of all the biofuel producers. We've met so many times, and even the industry, oil companies po. So, that's to clear lang po. No?
Mr. Chair, parang I heard Yusek Marcos say a while ago that after they issued the directive, that's the time they called in the stakeholders. Is that correct?
And before this output, sir, this directive, we also have 2 meetings with some of the immediate stakeholders na natawag namin. Then after the directive, sir, tinawag uli namin po, Mr. Chair.
I'm just kind of concerned kasi Yusek Marcos, because as far as I know, most of the stakeholders are against the issuance of this directive, which is the importation of Euro 2 introduction. So how come the Department of Energy still continued? Sorry, but during your meeting with the stakeholders before the issuance of the department order, did they were they vehemently opposing the order, or were they amenable to it?
Yes, sir. Actually, they're opposing, sir. But yung ibang players, yung mga maliliit na players, they're conforming with it. Plus, yung iba, sir, ha? Plus, yung malalaki naman, because we know that to go with the, or to be in harmony with the Clean Air Act, nag-modernize sila po ng kanilang mga, especially refineries. So, they involve big capex on that. So, irreversible na doon sa kanilang mga refineries to come up with the product of Euro 2. So, doon nga po sa mga negosasyon na gano'n, before the directive was released, nag-o-offer na din po ng possible discounts. So, ibig lang po sabihin, with these directives, everything was reconsidered, including the discounts.
Well, very concerned lang kasi Yusek, because most of the stakeholders were opposing it, but still you still continue with issuing the department order. It would have been prudent sana if you stayed your issuance of the department order and reviewed it some more, because based on all the comments of the stakeholders and the way I see it, I don't see the beauty of this department order. Just like what my co-chair said a while ago, ang ganda ng purpose. The purpose is good. Siyempre, we want to help our kababayans by lowering the cost of diesel. Alam naman natin, diesel affects everything, di ba? So, nagulat lang ako by finding out na marami palang ayaw dito sa department order, biglang-bigla nyo na lang in-issue. Kahit kami rito sa Committee on Energy, nagulat na rin. Sana man lang na nabigyan kami ng notice that you guys are gonna come up with a department order na para nag-retrogress tayo, imbis na moving forward tayo, umaatras tayo. Diba, Yusek? That's what I'm trying to point out. And another thing I want to point out with your department order, you keep on saying that it's only temporary. Okay, it's temporary. But your temporary issuance of this department order, how long? Kasi just like what you mentioned a while ago and what my co-chair said a while ago, the industry players in selling Euro 2, they'd be forced to invest. Diba? Maraming investment na papasok dyan. Pagbili ng tanks, pagdadagdag ng bagong pump na because you cannot nga mix. Diba? So yung cost ba nung pagdagdag nila ng tanks, pagbili ng bagong in delivery gas truck na yun yung cost ba nun na-compute nyo in addition to the savings na sinasabi nyo? Because the savings that you were referring to, yung 16 cents to 30 cents, that's just based on the MOPS. Tama po ba? Pero hindi nyo pa in-input yung lahat ng gagastosin ng mga oil players in investing para makabenta lang ng Euro 2. Because nga, everyone moved already to Euro 4. So, yung investment na yun, syempre, isasama mo pa yun doon sa price na nung nabili mo yung fuel, di ba? So, yung 16 cents to 30 cents mo, baka wala na yun. Tapos, syempre, if you invest, meron kang recovery time niyan. Sabi nyo po, temporary. So you have to give a definite time para ma-compute nila yung recovery nung Ang hirap rin yan. Kunyari, let's say, hindi ko inaano yung mga industry players natin. Temporary. So recovery period mo, hindi mo determined. So kunyari, let's say, wala kang period, that recovery period can go infinite. So they keep on recovering the cost ng additional infrastructure nung nila, sa mga gasoline stations, kahit na-recover. I'm just looking at, di ba? I'm just looking at it lang. Baka may mangyaring ganun, hindi natin alam Kunyari, na-recover nila in 2 years, lampas 2 years, recover pa rin ang recover. So, imbis na napapababa natin yung price ng fuel, dagdag pa rin tayo ng dagdag. So, I think those are some of the reasons, Mr. Chair, na very timely, although biofuels tayo rito, we wanted to connect etong pag-issue ng Department of Energy ng Euro 2 because one of the things we want to look at is itong biofuels. Baka with the biofuels, we can do something para ma-achieve natin yung goal to lower the price of fuels. So yun lang yung inaano ko, Yusek. Next time siguro, when issuing a department order, siguro when there are a lot of, di ba, comments, parang complaints regarding the department order. Let's study it some more, hindi yung bigla-biglaan natin. Nagulat na rin kami rito lahat. Uy, babalik tayo sa Euro 2. Diba? So, yun lang yung inaano ko. And last question, Mr. Chair. Ano ba to? Mandatory ba sa lahat ng mga industry players ba to? Or anyone can just optional? Okay. Sabi niyo po, Yusek, optional. Pero upon reading the department order, hereby directed. There's a huge difference between nakasulat sa department order natin na hereby directed at optional to the players. Kasi yes, kagaya nito, sir, if you ask the stakeholders, yung mga fuel natin, with regards to, sasabihin na lang, sir, bigyan na lang natin ng discount, which is what they've been doing already. They're giving discounts to PUJs at 1 peso, I think. So, I mean, instead of, di ba, bumabalik tayo So that's just my concern. And with your department order, Yusek, I think you have to make it clear. Because you keep on telling us that it's optional, pero the department order directs all industry players to provide Euro 2. That only means everyone must comply. Yusek.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Doon, sir, sa second paragraph, nakalagay naman monitoring and reporting. So, ibig sabihin, hindi, sir, abrupt agad. That is really just an option. Tapos, sir, this is not only a brainchild of, or specifically as a directive of our own. There was a collaboration, as I mentioned earlier. There was a collegial meetings between DENR and some of the stakeholders. So, 2 beses po kami nag-meeting. And DNR po mismo, may dala pa siyang graph nung panahon yon. Sinasabi niya na lesser yung lesser yung, wala namang masyadong malaking or significant variation yung
Senator
yung
Pimentel.
dalawa.
Mr. Chairman, with the permission of the co-chair, no, I will pursue his point. Yun din ang point ko. Yung pagkasulat nga, are we referring to, para klaro ha, Department Order Number DO ba yan? DO 2018-08-0012? Yan ba pinag-uusapan natin para klaro?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, sige. I agree with the co-chair. I mean, kaya wag niya na pong bagitin, Yusek. Kaibigan tayo yung meeting sa DNR kasi hindi yun ang in-issue niya. In-issue niya yung pagkasulat nung department order. Kasi parating yung sinasabi temporary and optional, but the temporary nature hindi rin kita hanggang kailan. And the optional, siguro you're harping on the word option as a fuel option, pero but are hereby directed all pa nga, no? May ano pa all. So yun po ayusin natin, and then kasi from the face of the department order, ganun po yung impression. And then number 2, meron na ba nagpapapasok ng Euro 2 pursuant to this department order? Ha?
None, Mr. Chair.
Wala pa.
Actually, Mr. Chair, yun nga po, after the directives, pinatawag namin sila, yung mga oil companies na, sinasabi natin na optional. Kaya nga, sir, medyo tama po, I agree with you, Mr. Chair. Pero niliwanag din po natin sa kanila talagang optional.
Hindi nga, sir, hindi pinapaliwanag, ano yan, verbally.
Sir, after the ano, nag-publish.
Dapat sa pagkasulat mismo, ano natin klaruhin na, there's the word option, but it's a fuel option. So, I am required to have Euro 4 and Euro 2. But I'm required. It's an option, pero hindi ngayon yung optional. So, ayusin po natin ito. Pero, ewan ko, I think the intervention of the Oversight Committee is timely because wala pa pala namang meron naman nagsabi that they're going to comply. They've started investing or spending to comply. Wala pa. So it's a timely intervention of the committee.
Thank you, Senator Pimentel. Si Mr. Galvez, I think you were first to raise your hand.
Salamat po, Mr. Chair. Manny Galvez po, Clean Air Philippines. Advocacy po namin ang malinis na hangin. Lagi po consistent. We have actually opposed the confirmation of 2 secretaries. Alam po ni Senator Pimentel. At ang amin ho, naglalayon lang ho kami na sana may tamang konsultasyon. Narinig ko po si Yusek kanina, nagkaroon daw ho ng consultation between DNR and the DOE. Patungkol po siguro yun sa may 2015-04 na nagsasabi sa order na ito ng DNR na itaas na ang kalidad ng crudo mula doon sa Euro 2 papunta sa Euro 4. Ang amin na masasabi lang ho namin dito kung talagang may konsultasyon po, may naglabas na po ba ng kasulatan ang DNR na nagsasabi, okay, payag kami dyan. Kasi unang-una, dapat nalaman nga na rin namin doon nakonsulta rin kami doon kasi kami kinukonsulta from time to time, particularly ng Environmental Management Bureau. Ngayon po, ang input na lang po namin dito is this sana man lang mabigyan ng pagkakataon na ma-monitor kung ano ang epekto ng reduction of sulfur from 500 parts per million to 50 parts per million. Nabanggit na nga ho kanina, meron hong kinalaman ito sa pagtagas o pag-produce ng PM10 o yung particulate matter. Hindi pa lang ho particulate matter ang pinag-uusapan dito, meron pa tinatawag na black carbon. Ang input po namin dito ay hindi po namin kung saan ang gagaling yung data na maaaring i-produce ng DNR when in fact air quality monitoring never really happened since 2003. Ngayon, may bago hong pamunuan ng Environmental Management Bureau, baka naman po this time kung itinatama na nila yung pagmamonitor ng ere, malalaman na ho natin kung ano talaga ang resulta at epekto ng pagtataas ng kalidad ng ating gasolina sa Euro 4. Bigyan lang ho sana ng ganung klaseng pagkakataon para malaman natin may epekto ba ito sa health? Ano yung impact? Ano yung data? Right now, we're not looking at any data as far as air quality monitoring is concerned. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair.
Attorney Suntay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Senator Gatchalian, Senator Pimentel, and Congressman Velasco. Well, nagpapasalamat po kami at naimbitahan kami dito at I represent IPCA, which is composed of the Independent Philippine Petroleum Companies Association. We're composed of the smaller independent players like Flying V, Sea Oil, Uni Oil, Clean Fuel. And I'm also glad na nagsalita na rin yung counterpart ko from PIP, which is composed of the oil majors. So between their association and our association, I think we cover the retail industry. And we're also very happy na pinatawag po kami doon sa clarification meeting after the directive was issued because we were very much concerned, kagaya ng what was pointed out by Congressman Velasco, that the wording was mandatory if you read it. And our particular concern was with regards to my member association companies. It would be very difficult for us to comply for reasons given by Mr. Teddy Reyes. In fact, in my talks with both Petron and Shell, Petron said they will not be able to sell Euro 2 because they upgraded the refinery and they cannot go back. Shell also said the same thing, that they cannot participate. Pagdating ho sa amin, for reasons given, yung cost, the additional capital expenditures needed to retrofit our facilities by buying new dispensers, putting up new lines, putting up a separate tank, and yung logistic requirements, yung cost nito would be too high. And for a temporary measure, hindi namin mababawi yung additional investment needed. So hindi din ho kami makaka-comply. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Teddy.
I think this applies to everyone. I don't want to play a devil's advocate here, but assuming that there are players, and I hope they are responsible enough, they come in with Euro 2 fuels and market as Euro 4. That is more dangerous because if I am an owner of a opportunity, and that is a Euro 2, and falsely claimed as Euro 4, and probably price it lower than the usual Euro 4 of almost all the players, that is more dangerous. So that is the danger of having two grades in the market. Because, not everyone can monitor that particular diesel that is being dispensed in that particular station, wherever it is really a Euro 4 grade fuel. So there's danger here. And that, again, is an antithesis to a level playing field in the industry. So those are realities on the ground.
Thank you, Teddy. Both groups who represent the gas stations nationwide made mention of the additional investments. But we need concrete numbers. We cannot just conject something out of thin air. We need concrete numbers. Magkano ba, Teddy, ang gagastusin nyo to accommodate the Euro 2 importation? And on a per liter computation, magkano idadagdag nyo? Kasi eventually passed on to Sabi nga ni Senator Pimentel, at the end of the day, you'll make the investment, but you'll pass it on to the consumers, because this is a deregulated industry. So, have you run your economics regarding the additional investments?
Mr. Chair, because of the enormous numbers, the different parameters, a lot of assumptions to be made, they are taking time to get at the correct number, the more precise number. But the initial figure already amounts to more than the 30 centavos per liter, which is at that point a maximum differential between a Euro 2 and a Euro 4. So if you add up everything, including the cost of flushing down, remember, when you have to introduce a new fuel, a new grade of fuel, the one that is already in the tank and in the pipeline has to be flushed out because they cannot mix. price again. So in planting out and in coming out with a new grade of fuel is another cost. So aside from the capital investment, there is the additional operating cost, which cannot be which cannot be denied. These are real cost. And therefore, the initial estimate of more than 32 centavos per liter, which is already much more than the differential, can go up when all the parameters and all the variables are considered.
Teddy, for the information everyone, because not everyone is familiar with the supply chain of distributing oil. Let's walk step by step, no? So pag import mo, meron kayong tangke, no? You don't need to build a new tank. All you need is to flush out, correct? Pag bating ng barko na may Euro 4, no, you don't need to build a special tank for that. No? You can use your old tank if a flush out nyo lang yung Euro 4. Sorry, when you bring in Euro 2.
Euro 2.
Tama ba?
So I mean that the underground tanks in the retail station. In the retail station.
Sa importation mo, existing tank as is yun. Correct?
Yes.
Yung mga delivery trucks as is yun. Ipa-flush out mo lang, correct? Pagdating doon sa retail, no, ilan tangke po ang retail station?
So, mahirap yung asserting at this time. For example, in a certain station, the two underground tanks service already the Euro 4. If the requirement is for Euro 2 to be added, then whether we like it or not, you have to add another tank.
So they need to invest another tank.
Another tank.
And earlier you also mentioned that you need to invest pumping.
Yes, pumping, under this pumping pump, yes.
Exclusively for
Euro 2.
For Euro 2. So those are the main investments of all the gas stations.
Yes.
Correct.
And, aside from the operating cost.
We'll ask first Attorney Suntay and then we'll go with the other.
Well, yes, Your Honor, for the barest minimum, kunyari, magdadagdag lang tayo ng you need one tank which will cost around 800,000. Then you need pipings for this tank. Then the civil works. So piping and civil works would cost you around 650,000. And then a dispenser, depending on the type of dispenser that you use, between 600 to 850,000. That is just for to be able to sell the additional product. Kasi kagaya sa amin sa Independence, we already carry three particular products, 95 octane fuel, 91, and then diesel. So if we reintroduce a Euro 2, either magtatanggal kami ng produkto na binibenta na namin o magdadagdag kami ng tangke.
One tank per product, yeah?
Yes.
One tank.
Yes. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Director Abad.
Yes, sir. We just need to clarify the options kasi ang minimension po is palaging dagdag. And we need also to clarify that I think you mentioned correctly, sir, na talk about products, there should not be commingling of different types of products. Kaya one system po yan mula dun sa storage, sa pipeline hanggang sa dispensing station. Including what's happening also in the bulk level, which is ganun din naman ang setup dun. Storage, pipe, and dispensing discharge station nila. Well, the mention of the additional infra, again, is an option. It's based on business model. Ang sinasabi po namin dyan, but again, you're correct dun there's a need to correct the order. Okay. Ang sinasabi po natin is, the option not only deals with a specific infra of the station, but also the location. Kasi yung sinasabi naman po natin, kung meron kang 2,000 gas retail stations, pwede mong itabi yung 50 doon. The one that you will disable, yung sinasabi ni attorney, na pwede mong palitan, yung instead na may diesel max ka, diesel turbo, sorry to mention, this is Petron's product, bakit disable mo muna doon yung turbo to the 50 lang, or to the 25? gasoline station. So hindi lang po dun mismo sa gasoline station, pati po yung location pwede mong piliin. But in all other stations, pwede mong hindi palitan without need for additional infrastructure.
Mr. Chair.
Apo.
Mr. Chair, yes. Director Abad, I was just thinking, no? Siyempre, ang purpose natin dito sa department order natin is to fight inflation. Okay. Tapos now you're telling us, you can just choose the gasoline stations. One, you can choose which gasoline stations, which I can surmise from reading the second paragraph of your department order. Kasi nakalagay rito, going back to your department order, ano? Una, first paragraph, you say, hereby directed. So meaning mandatory yan. Second, sabi nyo, optional, because there's a monthly compliance report. So that's what you're saying, optional. Pero sa tingin ko, hindi pa rin optional yun. Because monthly compliance report, you comply with the directive. Third, ang nakikita ko lang na sinasabi nyo na optional is the list of participating retail outlets. Okay. Okay. Pero sir, when you look at the list of participating retail outlets, parang I don't see the beauty pa rin eh. Because if you want to have parang a holistic effect sa sa industry natin, mababaan yung presyo, you have to apply it to all, otherwise none at all. Ang sinasabi nyo kasi, pick the retail outlets, dun lang kayo magbenta ng Euro 2. Parang sa akin, sir, parang ang weird yata, no? You have to apply it to all the retail outlets, otherwise don't apply it at all.
Mr. Chair, I think the intent was not deleted naman dyan. Yung transport sector po. So, when you say the list of participating retail outlets, ang consideration po is to be able to serve yung mga naggagasolina na nandun sa public transport. So, Yusek mentioned earlier na kung sa global city ka, highly unlikely na mag-offer ka naman dun. Pero but if you are actually in the aligned dun sa EDSA, for example, pwede kang pumili dun. But not all. Pwede nga. Kasi pwede mong i-disable yung isang system mo with a particular product at palitan mo yun. Flashing lang po yung costs nun.
It's your Director Abad because ang fina-focus mo lang yun sa commuting sector sa transport sector, sa commuter, sa mga PUJs, mga PUBs. Paano yung mga delivery vans, yung mga cargo trucks? Lahat rin yan mag-aano. So that's what I'm saying. You can't just apply it in certain retail outlets. You have to apply it to all kung gusto nyo talaga magka-effect. But, looking at your department order again, nakalagay rito, monthly compliance report, list of the participating retail outlets for proper monitoring by the department. Okay, I have a problem with that. Because in the past hearings dito sa biofuels, I think kayo mismo inamin nyo, you can't monitor all the gasoline stations. If you cannot monitor, do you have the manpower, Yusek Director, do you have the manpower to monitor all the retail outlets natin? I'm sure sasagot niya sa akin, sir, sorry, undermanned kami. Tama po ba? Tama. So, yung pag-implement pala natin ng biofuels law, kung may tamang blend tayo, you cannot already monitor that. Paano kung magkaroon tayo ng adulteration itong Euro 2 at Euro 4? I-pass out, ayan there's 6,834 stations nationwide. Paano kunyari, unscrupulous ako, yung Euro 2 ilagay ko sa Euro 4 pump, i-mix ko doon sa Euro 4, blend ko yung Euro 2 at Euro 4. Di lumaki na kita ko. Kasi mas mura Euro 2, Euro 4, pinapasok ko as Euro 4. Those are the things na I'm looking at na medyo delikado when it comes to this department order. So, going back, yan sinasabi ko, in coming up with mga ganitong decisions, should have, sa akin lang sorry to say, but two meetings with the stakeholders, in coming up with the wordings ba nitong department order, did you give this to the stakeholders for them to review before you release this? Or basta nirelease nyo na lang, pinakinggan nyo na lang yung comments nila? Did you ask for their comments on the DO number, on the department order before you released it, Yusek?
After 2 meetings, yung output, iyan, tapos pinatawag uli namin sila for the reaction. Tapos dyan namin sinabi, sir, na optional lang. Yun nga yung sinasabing verbal lang, sir.
Sorry, Yusek, what were the reactions of the stakeholders?
Sir, actually, yung iba, sir, siguro hindi rin nagsasabi sa kanila ng ano. Yung iba naman, sir, directly sabi nila, aalisin nila yung tangke lang, mag-i-import sila ng bago para doon sa bago lang tangke. Kaya lang, siyempre, iba-ibang representations minsan, so medyo nagkakaroon ng konti pagkakaiba. Pero may mga ganun din kaming narinig sa reactions nila. Na meron naman pong gusto mag-comply, pero marami din, sir, talaga, honestly, na nagre-react kasi nga yung sinasabi nilang infrastructure expenses. So sinabi naman namin, yung katulad ng sinabi ni Direk Rino kanina na magpapangalan lang sa iba't ibang istasyon ng tangke na yun, alisin may Euro 4, Euro 2 muna, for those main thoroughfare roads, yung talagang may address mo lang yung marginalized sector, which is the transport and the utility jeepneys, utility vehicles.
Okay, pero Yusek, the way I'm seeing this, ang tingin ko lang sorry to say, pero parang hindi masyado pinag-aralan na matindi itong department order. Sa totoo lang. Sorry to say, most of our stakeholders are against this. DNR is against this, DOTR is against this, kaya hindi pa nagsasalita si Sir Gia. But because of the jeepney modernization plan of the DOTR, definitely they don't want this. That's how I see it. Pero, the way I see it, Yusek, magulo eh. The department order says, mandatorily, we have to implement. Now you're saying, optional. No. So, Mr. Chair, sorry, Mr. Chair. No, because I have to excuse myself, sorry. But I have a flight to catch. Yung conclusion ko lang, Mr. Chair, since the department order is really messed up, in confusion ng lahat, optional, mandatory, you have to make a stand. Tapos nakalagay rito, participating retail outlets. I think you have to go back to your, to the drawing board and redraft your department order. And in the meantime, I think you have to suspend this first. Because yung mga industry players natin, nakalagay na rito, this department order shall take effect immediately. Ang hirap, immediately. So, I think we have to go back to the drawing board, study it further, suspend this first, the DOE come up with an order to suspend muna ang Department Order 2018-08-0012 because definitely based on this hearing pa lang, hindi pa naman tayo tapos, it already looks to me, and I'm sure, yun rin ang kita ng mga kasamahan ko rito, si Senate Pimentel and Senator Gatchalian, parang the avowed purpose of the said department order, hindi natin ma-achieve. So, Mr. Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you, Co-Chair, and we recognize Mr. Diaz,
Yes,
Mr. Attorney Suntay.
I just would like to state that there are 2 types of diesel, 2 types of national standard. One is automotive diesel, the other is industrial diesel. I have handled the gasoline station business of Petron a long time ago, and I know that if we will have 2 products, it will be a logistic nightmare for the gasoline stations. You have to have 2 equipment each. But I believe that to have Euro 4 and Euro 2 for the automotive diesel is going to be very cumbersome. Maybe we should stick to Euro 4 for automotive, but we can go Euro 4 for industrial. After all, there are oil companies that are supplying industrial fuel, and industrial fuel have less specs. And you can have, and these are the ones that look for cheaper fuel, and maybe Euro 4 can be destined for industrial diesel, which is already an existing specification. Euro 2 for diesel, I'm sorry, Euro 2 for industrial, yes.
Attorney Suntay, I think you're raising your hands.
Thank you very much, Senator. Well,
I think the biggest challenge of that DOE will face is to look for retailers who will be able to sell this. As I mentioned earlier, between PIP and IPCA, maybe we have 70% of all the retail networks. We would not be able to comply, as I mentioned, for a temporary measure to mitigate yung inflation. Hindi namin mababawi yung cost of investment. I mean, hindi ko pa, and we're not even going to yung health benefits, yung health effects ho. PIP, I believe from the tenor nung sagot ni Mr. Teddy Reyes kanina, I don't think na they will also be able to comply with such directive. So the biggest challenge is looking for someone who will retail Euro 2.
For PIP and IPCA, please submit to us your computations. No, like I said, no, it's very important for us to see, to the very last liter, kung magkano gagastusin nyo if ever this will be rolled out. No? And you are saying that it's beyond the 30 centavo savings, but we need hard numbers to analyze. No? I was telling Senator Pimentel earlier that stop na ho kami ng Congress at ng Senate because we put in 2.6 billion for the PUV modernization program, of which the minimum is Euro 4. In fact, dito po sa Senate, kakabili lang ho namin ng yung sa co-op, yung employees co-op, at minandato po na Euro 4 ang minimum specification ng engine. And with that, we want to hear DOTR, your position on the Euro 2 and also dito po sa modernization program ng gobyerno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. On the part of the DOTR, PUB Modernization Program, tama po yun. We specify a minimum of Euro 4 compliance engine for all public transport. Ang ano natin ngayon to, when we will have a Euro 2 fuel, it's an alternative, the driver who usually go to the gas station might opt for the lesser, for example, it comes up that it's much lesser in cost, in amount. The driver might just put a fuel which is Euro 2 without the operator knowing that the fuel they're using is Euro 2. So definitely the lifespan of the vehicle, which we are modernizing, will be much lesser. So yun yung ano namin na conflict na, that's why we're opting the promotion of this Euro 2 fuel.
Can you clarify that
yung ano namin, ayaw namin doon sa kumagasan na magkaroon ng alternative na Euro 2.
So you're against the Euro 2 importation, in other
Because
words?
definitely it will affect the program. Well, bakit kami mag-introduce, mag-impose ng Euro 4 compliance? Pinapayagan ng gobyerno nyo yung Euro 2 eh. Diba? Yung ano namin, parang may conflict kami doon sa policy.
Well, definitely kami ho ni Senator Pimentel, we were also privy to nung pinatawag po yung mga PUJ drivers dito because of the modernization. We know for a fact that there is really violent reaction to that transition. More so that we are now giving them added arguments to transition into Euro 4. Kasi nga, now that we're saying that Euro 2 is available, it's cheap, bakit nyo naman kami pinupuwersa na pumunta sa mas mahal na fuel? Diba? Mahal na nga yung amortization, mahal pa yung fuel. No? So, it's really contradictory. Contradictory also to this national government program. And no less than the President, I remember, really stated verbally of his support to this modernization program. No? That's why both the Congress and the Senate allocated about 2.6 billion to jumpstart the modernization program. You also have some guests from CAMPI, which is the Car Manufacturers Association. Any comments po or anong position niyo po dito sa Euro 2 importation?
Okay, good morning. I'm Paul Agustin from Campi and Honda. And actually, the information given by Mr. Rapi regarding the effect of sulfur on the vehicle, it will damage the catalytic converter. The sulfur will poison or damage the catalytic converter. That's correct. And also another effect of sulfur is it reacts with water. Based on the study of JAMA, it reacts with water and it becomes sulfuric acid. And we have a catalytic, we have a exhaust gas recirculation, EGR. It is being fired again inside the combustion chamber, and it damaged the cylinder wall. So, as a simple citizen of the Philippines, I am checking if the sulfur will damage the cylinder wall and poison the catalytic converter, how much our lungs can damage by a sulfur. That's all, sir.
Mr. Chair, we can
Director Abad,
well, again, we have to emphasize that 50% of the diesel are consumed by the PUVs, and 100% of PUVs now do not have those catalytic converter, and in fact, the DPF or the particulate matter filter, wala pa po sila eh. So, yun lang naman po ang binibigyan po natin ngayon ng atensyon. Binabalance po dun sa price na makukuha sana ng mga driver. Kasi ang nilalabas po ng Euro 2 at Euro 4, halos kapareho po ngayon sa sitwasyon na yun. And the Philippine Cleaner Act even set the highest grade to 340 ppm. Ang difference of 160 na lang po siguro to the 500. Yun po yung sinasabi natin, ano ba ang morbidity effect talaga nung 160 ppm. So, again, the 50% of around 18 billion po yan in a year na consumption natin sa diesel, 9 billion po yan na pinag-uusapan natin na lumalabas kung ang ginagamit ay lumang vehicle, walang mga emission control system, that 9 billion liters of diesel doesn't really change the emission dun sa mga PUV. So, yan po ang, of course, we cannot argue anymore on the other parts of the discussions, but at least we hope to, at least the committee would consider at least the intent behind those numbers at saka yung effects sa rising petroleum products, which we can show you, sir, kung gaano kalaki in a span of 2.5 years. Kung gaano po ang nilaki ng ating petroleum fuel, nakakatakot din po.
And Director, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. But Director Abad, even if not looking at the environmental and health effects nitong Euro 2 at Euro 4, and looking at the cost, sabi mo nga, intent ng department order natin, yung pinapakita mo lang naman sa aming cost kanina pa is the MOPS, yung pag-purchase mo. But all the other cost in implementing your department order, hindi mo naman nilagay doon. Did you present that? Yung kung ano magkano gagastusin ng isang retail, ano?
Kung hindi po magdadagdag ng infra, as I mentioned, pipili po nung participating lang at location specific lang po ang pipiliin doon. At if a flash out, yun po ang madadagdag, flash out lang po. But of course, I know for a fact that we will never be able to control them or dictate yung profit margin. Euro 2, Euro 4, as far as the negosyante is concerned, pwede niyang i-maintain ang profit margin niya eh. Operation-wise, the same tao po sa gasoline station ang gagawa. It's just that may flashing po na initial, and then papalitan mo siya ngayon ng bagong product. But all other aspect, pareho eh.
Oo nga, pero Director Abad, if you heard what Mr. Teddy Reyes also said a while ago. If the demand increases for the Euro 2, kasi sabi mga mas mura, baka yung price ng Euro 2 at Euro 4 magkakaisa na. So it really defeats the purpose of the department order. So there are a lot of factors involved kasi, Director Abad, we're all looking at it. Even if you take out the environmental and health factors, when you look at the economic factors naman, parang talo pa rin tayo. That's how I see it. That's why nga, sabi mo nga kanina na choose na lang tayo ng mga retail outlets, but parang in limbo pa rin tayo eh. Anong retail outlets? In other words, all I'm saying is, parang hindi pa tayo ready. You know, parang hausaw pa yung, parang hindi pa luto yung department order na ginawa natin, tapos gusto natin take effect immediately. We should have taken a step back muna and, diba, study it more closely and how it really is going to affect the people and how is it really going to lower the pump prices. Yun na naman gusto ko sabihin. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We invited the Department of DNR to join us because we discussed the health consequences, we discussed the economic consequences and financial viability. We invited DNR. Unfortunately, wala ho yung DNR ngayon. So, in the absence of DNR, would like to ask DOST if you can share with us the environmental consequences. Kung kaya nyo, no? If you can give us your knowledge on what is the environmental consequences of using Euro 2.
The DOST has a partnership with the DOTR in the PUV modernization. So I think on that aspect, we will also like them not waver in retrogressing to Euro 2. And as far as the environment implications are concerned, I think this has been articulated well by the representative from the DOH on the effects of the different pollutants like the hydrocarbons and the NOx and the sulfur. Particularly, sulfur will result to acid rain when it's in the atmosphere. So for the DOST, I think we support the Euro 4.
Okay. Assuming we will save the challenge department order by making clear that it is optional and temporary, lalo na yung temporary nature, so DO number -A. I mean, kung optional, ito nga ang pagkaintindi nila mandatory and yet they say that they cannot or will not comply. Kung gawin natin optional, so alam na natin yung attitude nila, but what is now our parang incentive? We will not punish those who will not comply with an optional directive, but what is the incentive for those who will comply? Kasi otherwise, kung wala yung incentive, no one will comply. Yan ang, kasi parang ngayon, ang impression ko, ang pagkaintindi nga nila, mandatory, and yet, sabi nila, we cannot comply. Ang hirap. So, Undersecretary, so, pag-isipan nyo na we will save the department order, clarify its optional and temporary nature, but, suggestion ko, there must be some incentive for people to join, for players to join the program.
Actually, sir, ang ultimate objective nito is really for the consuming public, especially the marginalized sector. Tapos po, dahil malaki yung market na yun, market-driven to, it will be profitable palagay ko on the side of the businessman. Kung sakaling magiging malaki ang demand, and then, yun po, doon manggagaling yung insentibo nila. Plus, sir, with this nga po, na-trigger naman po yung mga oil companies natin, yung iba, voluntarily offer a discount para doon sa ating transport sectors. Meaning, with this, na-trigger po yun. So, ultimately, at the end of the day, makikinabang pa rin po yung consuming public natin.
So, the discount is given using current the current fuel option, which is only Euro 4 ngayon, di ba? Only
Yes,
Euro
sir,
4.
considering...
Only Euro 4 diesel. So, ang gusto mo sabihin sa akin, na kasi hindi naman tayo expert dito sa industry na to, the department order itself, since it authorizes now the importation of Euro 2, na sa tingin mo I will give the businessman more a decent profit, so that's incentive enough for them to join the program? Ganun po ba yun?
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, yun naman profit kasi nga po regulated, hindi po nakadisclose sa amin lahat yun. Kaya nga po meron kaming pinag-aaralan ding pagdidisbundle ng presyo. Ngayon po, ang nakikita lang namin talaga dito, with that directives, na-cushion natin yung masyadong impact dun sa mga maliliit. Kasi po yung mga diesel run na motorboats, opo, yung po ang pati po yung mga diesel natin.
Pass it up. So, it's, I don't know kung unintended or talagang intended, nakita nila yon, but it's a positive, it's a positive consequence na because of this, nagbigayan na lang ng discount the present system yung mga gas station and so, okay, so, but ito kasi pinag-uusapan and then maraming inputs, so I don't know how you will process the inputs. We can try to save the DO in the sense of clarifying it, pero kung ilang point ko na as a lawyer, kung option, lalo na naklaro na optional, nung mandatory pa nga, Attorney Suntay, basa yan noon, before this hearing, basa niya, mandatory, hindi sila makakomply, o di, optional na. So siguro, I don't know, yung parang sweetener, ano naman ang ating bibigay sa mga magko-comply, para naman merong, plus na. So meron na nagbigay ng discount on the present system, and then if you will still pursue this DO, what is the additional sweetener for those who will offer additional benefit to the consuming public? Yan. Sige. Sige po. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Pimentel. Dr. Aquino, you're raising your hands.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, we just like to add some information for the body to consider in coming up with a decision on this particular topic. As a research institution, the Marian Marcos State University also is looking at some points, and what we gathered from, we did a detailed research, and to answer also the point of Mr. Paul Agustin, and also for the social side. There is already a research that was conducted extensively on sulfur dioxide that affects human at high concentrations. And the National Advisory Committee for Acute Exposure Guideline Levels for Hazardous Substances, they pointed out that in these particular studies for a 10-year period, they suggested 0.75 ppm for a 10-minute exposure is the required. So if it's too much, talagang affected na ang mga tao at 10-minute exposure. So yun yung nandito sa study nila, sir.
Ulitin nyo nga ho yun.
0.75 parts per million ppm for a 10-minute exposure. This the reference is from sulfur dioxide acute exposure guideline levels with a web link of NCBI. This is from the National Center for Biotechnology Information.
What that research is saying, pag nasa labas ka ng kalsada at tumayo ka for 10 minutes at huminga ka ng 0.75 ppm na sulfur.
Affected na ang lungs mo, your respiratory system is affected. So, talagang damaging.
Ilan po ang Euro 2? 500. Okay, so
yun yung ano nila. So, and this is, ang taas, sir. So, ang ano dito is 0.75 lang dapat.
Dapat, okay. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yun. So inano lang namin kung wait, I have Tapos, 0.75 nga po ang PPMA. And then, talagang dinocumented din, inulit-ulit nila. So, for a 10 period, ito ho yung lumabas. So, just to add kung ano man ang may ano nila. So, it really affects also yung human. Especially, yung nandito po, yung mga asthmatic na. Kaya dapat hindi sila ma-expose.
UP? We also invited UP Los Baños, mga experts.
Good morning, Senator. Just want to add something about that study. Actually, that study was done in pure exposure with sulfur. But in the case of fuel, so na-encounter po natin siya in diluted form, or hindi siya pure na na-encounter natin. So in terms of, minimension po ni Sir kanina, in the Clean Air Act, so indicated there is 350 to around 1,000 ppm. So the standards were set based on environmental and health concern. So for human, the health effect of around 50 to 500 ppm is not that significant. Its fatality is around, if the concentration level of sulfur is around parts per billion. And for the effect in human health, for it considered to be significant, should be more than 1,000 ppm. Kaya po yun yung limit na naka-indicate sa Clean Air Act. So, yun po yun. So, for lower levels, it's more on, the initial effect is on metabolism of plants, succeeding lang po yung health effect. So, for it to be considered as fatal, so dapat yung concentration po niya or levels of sulfur in the fuel is masyado mataas. So fatality in the case of sulfur is in terms of parts per billion. So yung mga sinasabi po kanina ni Sir from the DOH, so mga acute respiratory diseases, it's beyond 1,000 ppm. So yung study po kasi na na-mention naman po ni Sir from MMSU, it was done in prolonged exposure. So magkaiba pa po yun. And it's under pure condition, which is contrary with fuel. So yun pa.
I'll make it very simple, no? Maraming namamasahe dito. No? Halos lahat namamasahe. Ang target po nitong Euro 2 ay jeepney. Correct?
Yes.
So rush hour, nag-aantay yung tao for 10 minutes. Maraming jeep na dumadaan, magkakasakit ba siya o hindi?
Not that significant, sir. So, ibig sabihin po, hindi po direct ang effect. So, kailangan po yung exposure, sabi nga po ni Sir kanina, yung term exposure, so matagal pa po yung effect. Yung let's deal it with concentration levels. So, based on the concentration levels ng Euro 4, Euro 2, 50 to 500 ppm, wala pong significant effect in terms of health ng tao.
Even every day, Monday to Friday?
Yes, sir. Hindi po ganun ka-direct agad yung effect.
I think in this case, what's important here really is to get the opinion of all the experts, medical experts, the academe, the researchers, but no, talking to and listening to everyone, I would really err on the side of caution. And in that case, I would like to hear a sign off from DOH. No? Because at the end of the day, DOH is our chief doctor. Kung hindi ho sila magsa-sign off, no, then the whole nation will not be confident with this importation. And from what I hear this morning, DOH is vehemently objecting to this strategy. No? So this is where we are right now. No? The academe, the researchers might say otherwise, but at the end of the day, it's the chief doctor who will have the say whether this is healthy or this is beneficial or harmful to the nation's health. No? That's where we are right now. We also have Mr. Lau, who is the Association of Biodiesel. Sir?
Sir, thank you for this chance. As an observer, because I'm not directly impacted, the situation right now is the trend for fuel is going up in steps. So this trend is intact, it's going up. If you're able to reduce your pump price by 50
going
cents
up
today,
in what sense? No?
the trend for petroleum is going up. Price of fuel. the price of petroleum. So it's going up in steps. If we are able to reduce the price by 30 cents, at best it is a temporary measure because the trend is still intact. That 30 cents will be offset by the rising price pa rin. To go through this rigmarole of infrastructure and consulting so many stakeholders, to have a temporary measure, I feel, is a little bit too much resources for too little. I feel that there are many other ways of reducing the cost of fuel. And one of those, and most effective as I feel, naglalambingan po yung DOE at saka yung mga oil companies. Madalas po sila mag-usap. Pakiusap kung pwedeng huwag muna magtaas. Pakiusap kung pwedeng maglagay ng jeepney lane. Marami po silang mga ganung klaseng paglalambingan. So it is not the only way to reduce price by moving to Euro 2.
Thank you, Mr. Lau. EPAP, any comments, Queenie, regarding Euro 2?
Sir, we are not directly impacted, so we are ready for our next agenda. I am from the bioethanol producers.
And anyways, I think marami ho tayong pinag-usapan ngayon, and one of the things that we also have to be practical about it is really yung comment ho ni Mr. Reyes kanina na adulteration, no? And just to be practical about it, we have 6,834 stations nationwide. Director Abad, ilan ba ho ang inspector nyo?
We currently have, sir, at the main office, 18 inspectors for liquid fuel. But we also have field offices. I think in the field offices, an average of 10 additional. So we have 3, so 30 additional inspectors.
So in total,
we're covering, sir, we go directly to the point. At this point in time, we're covering around 20% of in a year of those 6,000. Oh yes. Sir.
So
20%.
ano bang in-inspect ng inyong mga inspector?
Well, the number of inspector can do twice that. We can raise to 40%.
But what do you inspect?
20%, sir, is.
No, when you go to a gas station, what do you inspect? We have inspectors, di ba? Pupunta sila gas station. Ano ba yung inspect nila doon?
On two groupings of standards, sir. First, on the product quality, precisely on the parameters, as mentioned in the Philippine National Standards. And the second part will be on the facility standards. So both of them are being inspected through the use of the checklist.
How long does the inspection, one inspection, how long does it last?
In a day, sir, a team could visit, when you say a team, it's composed of at least 3, isang driver po, dalawang inspectors, kaya nila po ng 8 stations.
In a day?
In a day.
But you mentioned earlier that out of the 6,000, 20% lang ang
yes, sir.
nako-cover.
But we can double. We can double in terms of manpower, but we need to be reinforced pa po dun sa vehicle. Kasi meron po tayong, sad to say, moratorium po ngayon ng vehicles. There's the so-called refleeting, pero parang balik lang kasi refleeting lang eh. So I think we can double that into 40%, given the existing manpower now. But the problem is, We have very limited vehicle now.
My point of the matter is we have to assure the consumers that all, nationwide, from Luzon, Visayas, in Mindanao, that the gas stations are being monitored and being supervised.
What we do,
But
sir,
if now the gas stations will realize that only 20% lang yung kaya natin, the 80% will
yes, sir.
try to risk it out. No?
Well,
Dahil alam nila na 20% lang naman ma-inspect natin eh. So, I will risk it. No? Especially if they know for a fact where are those 20%. No? I would assume marami dyan, Luzon. But in the far-flung areas, like in Mindanao, I doubt it kung na-inspect ko yan. So, again, we're sending a signal to the market that, look, hindi naman namin kayo ma-inspect. Diba? So, in that light, to be honest about it, if the call of the co-chair is to suspend the circular and the call of Senator Pimentel is to amend and clarify, my call is to cancel the circular. No? Because from what I hear from the issues, and let me identify the issues. No? Again, the chief doctor of the country is saying that this is harmful to our health. It doesn't have any beneficial health consequences. And then you have the gas stations saying that kakailanganin namin mag-invest ng additional equipment. Ipapasa naman namin yan kay Juan de la Cruz. So yung 30 centavos na gusto natin ma-save, mawa-wipe out yan kasi papasa naman lahat namin kay Juan de la Cruz yan. And at the same time, we have a contradictory policy. No? DOTR is saying that kayo mga jeepney drivers, mag-Euro 4 na kayo, bibigyan namin kayo ng pera, transition na kayo and modernize. But then again, we're allowing importation of Euro 2. No? So we're contradicting government's policy. And at the same time, there's a lot of confusion on the circular itself. No? The co-chair made mention that there was no ample consultation, no? From the various stakeholders. And again, I want to err on the side of caution because the whole world is moving to a cleaner fuel from Euro 4 to Euro 6 to iba pang mas mataas. Meron na, SP, meron na. No? Everyone's moving to that direction, we're regressing. No? So, in my humble opinion, there's no benefit whatsoever in adopting Euro 2 once more. No? But again, nakita ko ho yung noble intention ng department, no, to really help in the bringing down the rate of inflation here in our country. No, I can see the intention, and also it is in the circular. I think it's really the responsibility of everyone to find ways to lower down the prices. However, the consequences, unintended or intended, is really something that will negate the benefits of that proposal. So with that po, I like to urge the department to consider the various suggestions, mine being the most extreme. But I think ang gusto lang naman ho natin dito malinis na environment, walang problema sa kalusugan, at mura or reasonable yung presyo. No? Pantay-pantay naman tayo na gusto natin lahat yan. So let's go back to our drawing board and consult the stakeholders and consult management. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I promised everyone that we'll finish in 3 hours, but I know we have 2 more topics. Pasensya na ho, no? But that's why I asked Queenie's opinion para hindi naman niya sabihin sayang yung punta niya. No? But
may lunch naman.
May lunch naman, correct. But any parting words? We will just suspend the hearing this afternoon. We will have another hearing to focus on bioethanol and biodiesel. No? Yun yung focus natin. And how these 2 additives can help in lowering down the prices. No? But before we terminate or suspend this hearing, any few words or any last words regarding this issue? Baka meron ho kayong gustong i-share? UP, malayo pa kayo, UPLB pa ho kayo, no? Any parting words? MMSU mas malayo, no? Nasa lawag pa ho yan, no? So any parting words?
Actually, yung purpose po talaga namin is for bioethanol and biodiesel.
Kaya nga ho.
But,
No, sorry po, sorry.
Sabi nga po ni Ma'am,
But I'm sure you picked up something here, no?
Yes, sir.
This is really
So,
beneficial to your research, no? Yeah, bioethanol ang focus nila. Thank you very much for your participation. Once again, Mr. William Mayor. Labo na mata.
Thank you, sir. Sayang naman din po ang punta ko dito. I would like to make an additional information that with the introduction of Euro 2 fuel, yung po mga terminals and refineries would also require additional tanks. Yun lang po, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and hope to see you once more in the... Teddy, yes?
Mr. Chair, as part of work, our advocacy here at the Philippine Institute of Petroleum is we share with the government in addressing the high inflation because it affects everyone. I was part of that discussion in the Train 1, and we were moving on the different scenarios to mitigate the impact of inflation. I guess you're aware of that. So in this case, we at PIP feels that there are there are more moves, or there are more proposals, more suggestions we can make or we can discuss to have a major impact in lowering petroleum prices. There are, and I guess it's too premature if I discuss it here now.
Well, sabi nga ni Mr. Lau, lalambingin namin kayo para taas kayo ng taas ng presyo. But acknowledge PCA Administrator Mr. De La Rosa. Sir, any words po?
Ang main po na pinunta namin dito, of course, is for the coconut farmers. No? Kasi nagko-complain nga sila ngayon na mababa masyado yung presyo ng kopra. At yan ay dahil sa pagbaba ng presyo ng vegetable oil prices in the international market. So, para sa amin, yung B5 po ay malaki ang magagawa para matulungan natin yung mga farmers. And they number yung kanilang, including their families, mga 15 million people sa population natin. So, malaking bagay po para sa mga coconut farmers yung biodiesel B5 at sana ay tayo ay we can go forward on that as fast as we can, Senator, dahil nagko-complain na siyempre yung economic impact on the coconut farmers doon sa pagbaba ng presyo, and increasing the domestic utilization of coconut oil will really go a long way in alleviating their poverty.
Chair, opinion lang from the DOE. Pwede sagutin nyo ngayon o hindi, or bigyan nyo kami ng written answer. Doon sa allegation ni Mr. Lau that the long-term trend for the price of petroleum products is it's going higher and higher. Sabihin nyo sa amin kung totoo, ganyan din mabasa ninyo. Why? Because when we were discussing Train 1, I don't know, Senator Gatchalian will correct me if I'm wrong, ang sabi sa amin, the long-term trend of oil prices is going down. Yun po yung aming nalaman. Doon ngayon nasabi is going up. So, DOE, kayong experts dyan eh.
Sir, we have to consider the... yes, sir. We need to consider the present geopolitical events that are happening all over the world. First is the Iran sanction. It directly hit the reduction or the constraint of the supply by almost 4 million barrels. Second will be because of the low prices in the past almost 4 years, it has impacted directly on the investment of oil companies all over the world on the upstream side, on their investment for the exploration and development. Now, it has a significant effect on the side of the future production when the existing fields depletes. So those are real facts. The third would be the existence of the international regulation, the International Maritime Organization regulation, which will happen by 2020, on lowering the sulfur content to 10 ppm? 10 ppm for the shipping industry. Now, what's the projection by the Platts? Sir, we have now a cracking cost of around $12 per barrel for gasoline. It will increase to 25. On diesel, we have almost the same, 14 to 15, a little bit higher because of the nature of the diesel, but it will go as high as $40.
So DOE analysis is long-term trend going up. Okay. So tinatanong ko yan because when we now discuss a new tax measure and we ask for inputs on the long-term trend of any item like oil, then pagsagot sa amin it's going down, duda na kami doon sa sagot na yun. Because dalawa na nagsabi na it's
Mr. Chair, we will be reporting to Yusek Marcos and ASIC Pulido the report on IMO, and based on that, probably we will also report to the committee. Including the Forex.
All right, thank you, Director Abad. And once again, thank you very much for your participation. We hope to see you again in the next Oversight hearing. Meeting is suspended.